Okay, and you're recording, right? Okay.
Yep. Good morning and welcome on into the Limitless Leadership Lounge. I am John Gehring. I should say good morning and good evening and wherever you are in the world because today our conversation is spanning countries and we're spanning time zones. And that's one of the great things about these conversations is leadership looks different across the world. It's a concept that has some universal truths and some universal traits, but also has some cultural differences too. So we're excited today to go over to Bangladesh and talk with a contact that Dr. Renuma Kareem has brought us today. I'm John Gehring, as always, joined by Coach and Dr. Kareem. So, Renuma, go ahead and introduce our guest. Let's dive in.
Thank you, John. It is such a pleasure to have Naveed Bhai. So we always call him Naveed Bhai, but Mr. Naveed Mahbub, an engineer turned award-winning comic. He is Bangladesh pioneer of stand-up comedy, founder of Naveed Comedy Club, and Bangladesh first comedian to be featured in Comedy Central. Navid Bhai also has a vast leadership experience in the corporate world, serving as the CEO of Nokia Siemens Network and the CEO of IBM. He performed in over 20 countries and well known for turning everyday life into laughs. So he's also has his own late night. He had his late night show in Bangladesh and a morning radio show. He was a TEDx speaker and father of three wonderful kids. They're not kids anymore. They're growing up fast. And Navid Bhai, welcome to Limitless Leadership Lounge. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. So, how are you doing? I know that you are now back in US. So, what are you up to?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this show. I'm really honored. And yes, I am in the US. I don't know if I shall say back in the US. I am in New York City right now. I'm hustling the stand-up comedy scene in New York. So that
Okay.
brings me here. So as of now, you mentioned also I've got three kids and one wife. Did I get that right? Sometimes I say three wives.
Yeah, and my
Yeah,
friend.
three kids and one wife. I get dyslexic sometimes. So, and my wife isn't very happy about that. So, anyways, so I'm splitting my time right now between New York City and Dhaka because Dhaka is where my family is, and here I am. This is the um, pretty much the epicenter of the stand-up comedy scene, and so I'm here hustling the scene right now. So that's why I'm in New York.
Wonderful. Coach, I'm giving the floor to you. You can start.
Sure. So Naveed, I gotta ask you because you have a very intriguing career, and we want to try to help young and emerging leaders. But I gotta ask you, just tell us a little bit about your journey because you went up the corporate ladder and then you went to comedy. So it's if you could tell us a little bit about that journey, because young leaders getting involved in corporations then often go off and want to do something on their own, so, something like you did with comedy. So tell us a little bit about your journey through the corporate ladder and then how you got into comedy.
Sure. By training, I'm an electrical engineer. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree, so a very traditional route. Then I worked as an engineer in the US for quite some time, Qualcomm, Kyocera Wireless, Ford Motor Company, Takata, and then also a California startup called Wingcast. So I kind of went from the blue chip company to all the way down. I wouldn't say down on the other side to the startup world. And for a brief while, I also went to business school but I didn't finish. But in when we were in California, I took up stand-up comedy just kind of by accident. I was working at Qualcomm in San Diego, California, and I took up comedy, and it was like a parallel path that started. So on one side, I'm a father, husband, I'm an engineer working at Qualcomm, but in parallel, I was a stand-up comic. It was almost like being Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Nobody knew about this side of me except for my wife, Zara. And I would not show up at a lot of the social events. And where's Naveed? Oh, he's got a teleconference with Tokyo. So, but really, I was hustling the comedy scene. So that started, and eventually in 2007, I became the best male comedian at the original Las Vegas Comedy Festival, and some news got out. Then I said, okay, fine, I have to quote unquote come out of the closet, which I did, and everybody was pretty surprised. So For a while, these two parallel careers continued. Then I quit, became a full-time comic, then ran short of money, and then we moved back to Bangladesh, opened up a comedy club, had my late night show, and that's when I got the job opportunity to become the CEO of Nokia Siemens Networks in Bangladesh, and then CEO of IBM in Bangladesh. But comedy was continuing in parallel. And then again, when things started really taking off, my late night show was taking off, my morning drive time show was taking off, my comedy club was keeping me busy. So I said, you know, I got to quit again, and then became a full time comic and have been a full time comic ever since. So that's pretty much been the journey. Parallel, then solo, then parallel, then again solo.
Wow.
So one key theme throughout the course of all of that, all the twists and turns and leadership positions that you held, was comedy and the power of storytelling through comedy. Tell us a little bit more about what a good comic and a good storyteller, what kinds of traits that they have, and how we as communicators in leadership positions can become more effective storytellers.
Yeah, this takes me to my first TED talk, TEDx talk, and it was about using humor as a delivery mechanism. Because when you're using humor, good humor, you have an attentive audience, and then you can deliver whatever message you have. Now, if you expand that same concept to whether, John, you're a radio show host, or Jim, you're a coach, Renuma, you're a faculty, whatever it is, at the end of the day, we have something to say to an audience, and our job is to make sure we hold their attention. And how do you do that? Humor is a way to do it, not the only way to do it. Jim, you're a great coach, you may have another way to do it. John, you're a radio host, you have to be very tight when you're delivering something. The whole idea is to figure out, how am I going to hold the attention of the audience? And I've got very little time. That's why the concept of elevator pitch comes to. We may think, oh, is that new? Well, it's got different manifestations right now. On your radio show, I'm flipping channels. If I don't like John Pup, I'm going to flip my channel. If I'm going through reels on social media, everybody's going through 10-second videos. If I don't catch your attention in 10 seconds, I'm going to move to the next video. So the whole idea, now, as a comic, my comedy has to be so good that from the first few seconds, I grab your attention, and then I continue to hold your attention so that I can deliver whatever I want to deliver. And the same goes to the leaders. If you're a leader, you're trying to galvanize your sales force who are freaking out because they're not meeting their sales target at the end of the fiscal year. They're freaking out. And your job is to go and pump them up like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? You are holding their attention in whatever way you know best, but also being very concise. I cannot drag on forever. So that's the key.
Yeah.
Naveed, I got to ask you, because I love comedy. I'm sure everybody does. Can you give us just a little story with some comedic background? Because it's always good to laugh.
So do you want to hear a joke or some funny story?
A funny story would be great.
Something from your life, maybe, so that translated into.
Those there are so many. Where do I start? Where do I stop? But it's also that when you're a comedian, they're always expecting you to be funny, and I'm also I'm a practicing Muslim, and many times at weddings in Bangladesh, they ask me to not officiate the prayer, but say, hey, can you do a little prayer for the new bride and groom? So I do this prayer, and I do it in Bangla, then I do it in English because there are expats there. And they say, oh, that was so beautiful. That was so lovely. And then this one person comes and says, hey, that was beautiful. That wasn't funny at all. I said, come on, you don't want to be funny in my prayers. So that's one funny anecdote, I thought.
So that's like doctors. When you meet doctors in different gathering, you will come and ask the doctors with all the kind of diseases, like what should we do? So and comedians, everybody expects you to go be comedic.
Yeah, well,
My
I mean, Rehnuma, let me say, John and Jim, I think this is more of a South Asian thing because when over here in the West, I think people really frown upon getting into formal discussions at a casual setting. But in Bangladesh, it's almost given. You bump into a, or even India and Pakistan, you bump into a doctor at a, let's say, a dinner, and then you're gonna pull up your shirt. Oh, you know what? I've got this mole in my back. Can you have a look at it in the middle of a party? So that's what Renu was talking about. But on the flip side, yes, people do ask, oh, Naveed, can you tell me a joke? And one doctor once did ask me, hey, Naveed, I heard you're a doctor. I mean, you're a comedian. Can you tell me a joke? I said, that, hey, I heard you're a doctor. Can you do a vasectomy operation right now in front of me? Can you do that? It was like a joke versus a joke.
Right. I have to ask you a question because I myself had to move away from the conventional path of being an academic, starting my own nonprofit, writing books, and all these kind of things. Now I'm not in a full-time job anymore as an academic at SUNY Brockport. So people will tell me, like, why are you going through that uncertain path when everything you can have a secured life? And in our culture, you did skip that path of conformity. So everybody expects you to go into that path of conformity. So as leaders in so many different, because you are a leader in the field of stand-up comedy in Bangladesh, were there those uncertainty, idea of risks that your mind, how did you tackle all those aspects of uncertainty to just go into that untraveled path in our part of the world? In America and the Western world, we could, but in that part of the world, it is difficult. So how did you navigate through those uncertainty and risk?
Well, difficulty is a relative definition, and from what you're saying in Bangladesh, it's more of a social difficulty that what people are going to say, and but the global phenomenon is that how do you survive in this uncertainty? So if I address both, the first one, I think the good thing that comes with age is that you tend to care less about what others think because the way I look at it is that I respect your opinion. I know you mean well, but at the end of the day, I will be the one responsible to pay my own bills. I don't think I can come and ask you to pay my cell phone bills. So for that matter, let me make my own decisions with all due respect. And second part is then again, now I go to the global phenomena. How do you address uncertainty? And the main aspect of uncertainty is finances. How do you survive? So this
Mm,
is a global phenomena, even in the US, that okay, fine, I've got a six-figure job, stable job, 401k insurance, and I'm leaving everything and I'm becoming an entrepreneur or an artist. It's still the same route, an uncertain route. So the key here and this is what I did, and I would really recommend, and I'm sure many people do this, is to actually have a game plan. It's not that you just
mm,
dive in blind.
right.
You have to have a backup plan or a sustainability plan. So in other words, I'm uncertain, but I am not going to put myself in a situation where I'm going to starve or have my family starve. So I have to have some arrangement made. So in my case, what I did, I had some residual income. So I said, okay, fine, I have the residual income. Yes, it's not going to be that I'm going to live a lavish lifestyle, but at least we're going to get by pretty well. And I was also fortunate that my wife, Zara, is very supportive. She is
Mm,
also an earning member. Not that I'm saying that we have to completely rely on that. What if she loses her job too? I don't want the family to not survive. So we had that in place, and that makes it easier to dive into the uncertainty. Now, once that is done, there's another step to it. You have to have a game plan. What is the end plan? That, okay, I'm going to do comedy, but am I just going to do it for fun? Or is it going to be fiscally sustainable?
mm,
The latter is also very important, not from the perspective that I'm doing comedy to make money, but if the money comes, that is a manifestation of the
right.
fact that I'm doing a good job in delivering this service. We are service providers at the end of the day. And if you, Jim, you talk about leadership, and it's still the same thing. You are a leader in an enterprise, and you have to have an end goal that we have to be sustainable and we have to be scalable. So that
Mm.
really is how I addressed it, and I think that's the best way to address it.
And mastery, I think if you have that mastery over certain skill, then you also get that confidence from that mastery you have gained. If you didn't have those level of skill, that mastery, then you know that things might not work as I have predicted. From my angle, like I feel that because I have the knowledge of, I taught a class of nonprofit for 10 plus years. I have the PhD, so I can venture and test the ground and see what's out there. So I had that confidence, sometimes knowledge probably because you have that mastery also. You had those things that gave you the courage to move forward. Do you think the mastery on the skill is also very important in
Well,
this?
of course, that's the premise. I mean, the analogy is that I just mentioned as a comedian or an artist or even a sports person or even a radio jock, John. At the end of the day, we have either a product or a service to deliver to the customer. And then in my case, as a comedian, my comedy is really a service to the customer. Just being a master is not enough. That means in a
Mm.
company, you have a great product. That's not enough. You also have
Mm.
to be able to sell it, and the consumers have to be willing to buy it. And how do you do
Right.
that? And that's why they call it show business. There's a show part, there's a
Yeah.
business part, and the business part is
Mm.
completely analogous to any enterprise, meaning that the product, yes, you have to be a master in the product or the service, but you also have to be able to market it. That means I have to have a good social media presence. I have to have a lot of followers, meaning that they are now liking my product. That means if I do a show, they'll come to my show, buy the tickets, and 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 then I'm constantly writing new material. So I'm doing the product development. So it's everything is there. It's just like running a business.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Hey,
that's a brilliant point.
yeah. Naveed, I got to ask you, because I always talk of, trying to find your passion, and I think sometimes that's overused, but I am curious. You started as an electrical engineer, and now you've been well known as a comedian. So I got to ask you, was comedy something that you grew up with, and it's something, or was it something you just said, you know what, I'd like to try an open mic one night, in comedy. Tell me that transition because people are trying to figure out how they can combine something they love to do with also being able to make a service and project where they can make a living.
Sure. I always like to joke around and I always like to crack jokes. And people say that I'm the life of the party. So it's not doing it just for the heck of making others happy. It also makes me happy. If I'm making somebody happy, I feel happy too. So it was always in a social setting. And I have to say, give this credit to the United States when I came here. And I did come here in my mid 20s. I came here as a graduate student. I did not do my undergraduate here. But when I came here, one good thing about the US I found out is that there are a few things that nobody's going to laugh at you if you're doing something different. Two, people are very encouraging. Three, the concept is it's never too late. And four, it's a very enterprising environment, and that's why I think America has really done very well over the years. And now the countries are doing it because of this enterprise mindset. That okay, fine, I'm doing fun comedy, I'm doing fun, but then I started going to comedy clubs and I was saying, oh my God, these guys are on stage. They're talking for 45 minutes, making people laugh, and we're paying a lot of money to see them. So this is a sustainable enterprise. And and it's also a high that you are in control of that situation. So I said, you know what? Let's put these two together. And then I go and talk to Sandy Shore. She's a very famous comedy instructor in Los Angeles, and her mother, Mitzi Shore, have you heard of the Comedy Store in Hollywood? It's
I
a very
have.
Mm-hmm.
famous club.
Mm.
All the big names, Letterman, everybody came out of there. So Mitzi Shore and Sammy, her husband, Sammy Shore, he used to open for Elvis. They opened the club in the 70s, and that was the big rage. And Sandy is their daughter, and she's a big instructor. I went to her, and this was 2004, 5. Not that many South Asians were doing comedy. And she said, whoa, I've never seen a brown guy come in want to try comedy, and you're an engineer, you're kind of different, let's work together. So she mentored me for 2 months, and she said, Naveed, you have a different story to tell. Tell it on the stage. And she's got me going. And you know what? That's it. Never look back after that. So it's a combining this enterprising mindset that I've observed in the US, meeting Sandy Shore, and then seeing that, hey, if you can have a passion, you can actually, I don't want to use the word commercialize it, but you can actually make it a profession. And that's really the win-win situation. And this takes me to that Venn diagram somebody did. There's a term for it, I don't remember. There are three circles. One is that what you're good at doing, one is that what brings you money, and one is what you love to do. Now, I could be an engineer that makes and which brings you the money. I could love to sing, but I that doesn't bring me money. But if you try and get the Venn diagram closer and closer, the more overlap you have, and eventually, if you have 100% overlap, now you are the best in this field. You love to do it, and it's bringing food to the table. That's where we all try to figure out in life how to get to.
Yeah. And relationships are such a key piece of this too. And I think that's something that you're able to brilliantly do as a comedian is, well, you build relationships with those around you. That's part of the business side of things. But then you also build a relationship with an entire audience. How are you able to practice that, the art of making someone, because a good comedian, from my experience, really makes someone feel like the comedian is talking to them one on one, even if you're in a room with thousands.
But John, that's bang on target. A stand-up comedy exercise is almost like being on a date. You're on a one-on-one. This is a special moment for every audience member. They've paid money, they've dressed up. This is their time in the evening in town. They've come to have a good time. And my job as a comic is, and every comic's job is to make that person feel special. And that means A, you make that person happy. B, you make that person feel as if I'm talking to you one on one. And in many cases, we do. This is called riffing. You see that comedians go on stage, they are actually interacting with the audience. They call it picking on the audience. Instead of making that person feel bad, you can make them feel good. John, you're sitting in the front row. You'll see that comics are actually talking to people one on one. We're sitting in the front row, so you're actually directly having this conversation. That person is talking back. You're talking back. Now, the whole idea is to make that a pleasant experience. Make them laugh, of course, because it's a comedy show, but make this person feel good. Many a times, we comedians make the mistake of crossing the line and making the person feel bad. I'm putting this person down. I'm picking on him or her. I am addressing or I'm talking about some drawback in that person. This is what Sandy Shores told me. Navid, never do that. Never, ever put anybody down. Pull that person up. And once you do that, that's how you connect with the audience. Now, the question is that how do you know what kind of an audience that is? So if at a show, what we call is you take the bullet, meaning you're the first comic in the lineup. So you don't know how the audience is. But if I'm the second or the third, I have the luxury of observing how the audience is reacting to the first comic. So this is called reading the room. I'm gauging what's the mood of the audience. What are the demographics? What is their mindset? Are they conservative? Are they liberal? Are they this? Are they that? Are they military? Are they corporate? Are they college kids? And then once you go up, you're already know your audience, you deliver accordingly. So let's say if I see that there's are all college kids, I'm not going to go up and say, oh, my kids are doing this. They don't care because they're kids themselves. They don't have kids. Versus if I say, hey, when I was in college, at the end of the semester, they're going to open up. Now they're going to relate to what you're saying. So you're reading the room, you deliver what matters to them, and that's how you draw them in. And then they have the impression, hey, you're actually talking to me, not to somebody else.
Yeah, that's so important in radio too, knowing your demographics and the relatability to the audience. But then there's so many overlaps with leadership too, because as a leader, Sometimes we just execute our plan, whatever it is, however it's worked in the past before, with no regard to the people we're leading. How can comedy sometimes actually be a life lesson when it comes to leadership too?
Well, this is extremely important. And I remember when I was the CEO of Nokia, Siemens, and IBM, and I was, as a comedian, I was always doing comedy. And, in stressful situations, when you're using comedy to give a message to motivate your team members in a relevant way, it really goes a long way. And I'll give you an example that this was in 2011, 12. The concept of working remotely wasn't there. It was somewhat there in the West, not at all in Bangladesh. So anybody said, I'm going to work remotely, they would say, oh, you're lazy. So I remember we had this female colleague, and she's a very good sales manager, and she's working very closely with one of the big cell phone operators, a very big customer. And her son was getting sick, and I said, just stay home. There's no need for you to come to work. I mean, your work is really with the customer. So talk to the customer on the phone, but be with your son. That's the most important thing. And she said she was surprised. Really? Yeah, because colleagues were also saying, "Oh yeah, she stays home. She's not." I said, "Well, wait a second. Her mental well-being is the most important thing. If she's mentally she's happy, then she'll be very productive, and she doesn't really need to come to work. I mean, as long as her customer is happy, her son is happy, she's at a peace of mind. She's going to exhibit the best leadership there. And of course, I didn't just say, okay, you stay home. I said, you know what? And I have to talk about this also, that for 3 years I was a stay-home dad in California while my wife was going to Berkeley Business School. So I knew what it was, or I still know what it is to be at home with a child, and more so in the US, that you're all by yourself. In Bangladesh, we have the luxury of having a nanny. They're affordable. In the US, they're not, unless you're super rich, unless you're Elon Musk, you can take your nanny to meet Donald Trump. You're on your own. So that 3 years taught me, by the way, to that what it really takes to be a parent and juggle your work. So I knew what that female colleague was going through. And she said that, wow. And then I could tell right away that her throughput went through the roof. She was happy. And then I was drawing on my anecdotes about being a stay-home dad. Oh yeah, you know what? I can't sleep. You know. So it was funny, but at the same time, I motivated her, and the leadership went across. And we call this term CIL. Jim, you know this very well. Consistency in leadership, meaning that customers at every touch point will experience the same level of leadership. So it doesn't matter which that she's home, maybe she's breastfeeding her kid. I don't know, or they don't know. They don't need to know, but they're seeing the same level of leadership. And I think
Right.
that's how it works.
And you immediately, the word that comes to my mind in leadership world is emotional intelligence. So, in while understanding your when you are understanding your employee that needs emotional intelligence, being aware of their need. And you also talked about understanding the crowd. When you are a stand-up comedy, you have to understand who is coming from where. So it is so important for leaders and also in every role to be emotionally tuned with the people you're working with. So thank you so much for bringing that out. And you were piggybacking on the idea, the work-life integrate. We talk about work-life balance a lot nowadays. So you mentioned well-being in job, and we know that now that when well-being improves, productivity increases as well. So I'm curious what I heard about this term work-life balance, but recently I also studied and found out that it's nowadays it's more like work-life integration. So instead of trying to go for the balance, I don't know if it's 50-50. Is it ever possible in work-life balance? So what is your take on like this work-life balance in your life? And this term that is coming up, like work-life integration. Instead of finding the balance, can we integrate all these things together in a leadership role?
Well, am I the best practitioner? I'm pretty sure I'm not, but I try my best. And these terms I don't know a whole lot about, but at the end of the day, I think it's all common sense. One premise I always believe in, and I'm sure everybody does, is it's not the quantity, it's the quality.
Right.
So I may not end up spending as much time as I would have liked to with my kids, but whatever time I'm spending, it had better be the highest quality. So in other
Mm.
words, I may have the luxury to be with my kids for 4 hours a day. But if I'm on my phone, that 4 hours is really not much quality. He's with me, but I'm not with him. But it could be that I have such a busy day, but I'm only 20 minutes with my 8-year-old son. But that 20 minutes is bang on one. You know, his name is Niam. Oh, Niam, so how was your day? I'm not talking to an 8-year-old. I'm talking to a peer, a friend. Hey, Niam, how was your day? What did you do? Oh, really? You did this? Oh, at work I did this. So we're talking as peers, and he's saying, "Wow, Dad is not looking at me as a child. He's looking at me as a buddy." So we're talking boy talk, or with my daughter, she said, "Oh, I have a crush on this guy." Instead of reprimanding her, I say, "Oh, really? You know what? Yeah, he's kind of cute." So it's really the quality. Even now I am traveling. I'm in New York. My son or my kids are back home, but I make sure at bedtime I get on a WhatsApp video call. I'm virtually putting them to bed. So again, it's really not the means, not the time numbers, but the quality, how we are doing it efficiently. Like my wife Zara, she's in Bangladesh, but she's working U.S. time, so she's working late nights. But she times it that what, I'm gonna take this time off and have dinner with the kids, and I'm gonna put the kids to bed. Or in the morning, I'm gonna get up, make sure they go off to school. Then I'll take a nap. So it's how you work it out. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, not
Right.
how much, but what the quality is. That's really what I think
Prioritizing.
is the key.
Right.
That's a good
Well,
point.
more than prior, of course, it's prioritizing, but at the same time, the quality over quantity.
Depth.
I think that
Mm.
really is the key.
That's right.
Naveed, let me ask you about, because you were in the corporate world for quite a while and you had various positions. What would you recommend for somebody that's trying to climb the corporate ladder and get into higher level leadership positions like you were able to obtain? What advice would you give that person?
Well, several things, and I draw from my learnings by doing or by not doing, by making mistakes. A is that never shun any work that's given to you, because I'm getting paid to learn it. Many times we make this mistake and that's where we get into the silo mentality. Oh, I'm in accounting, I'm not going to do sales. Well, guess what? If I'm in accounting, I get the opportunity to do sales, I'm learning a new skill set. And one day, if I'm an entrepreneur, I have to even go and clean the toilet. So I, the more skills I get the chance to learn, the better. And especially if I'm starting off my career, I'm younger, I have less familial responsibilities, so I have more time. So if instead of complaining, oh, I'm working long hours, well, guess what? If I'm paying working long hours, they're also paying for my meals. They may be giving me a bonus. So I'm getting paid to learn skills. It's a win-win. Second is that I will have different types of people around me. Many a times the joke is about the boss. My boss is something negative. But I remember my boss's boss used to tell me, Naveed, managing your boss is also a very key skill set. And eventually I learned that that was such a skill to have. You will have different types of people, mostly people you find very difficult to work with. But if you figure out how to work with them without losing your temper or your patience, as Rehnuma was talking about the EQ, that's the other skill you're building. So I really would say these are the things you embrace as you're going up. And the third is, of course, um, John, you mentioned about building your contacts, meaning your social capital. Go out, meet people. And one thing I would do is that, I would go a totally different department and then, I say, oh, hi, how are you doing? So I was, even socially, I was going to other departments, getting to know them, because engineers are different type of people, marketing people are a little different, sales are different, HR is different. So you're also learning to appreciate and learn about different types of people. So as you're going up, you're more well-rounded, not only in skill set, but also dealing with different type of people, different type of scenarios, different type of pressures, and eventually it helps. And I'm also going to draw again on this 3 years that I was a stay-home dad. I quit my job. I was a stay-home dad, and when I went back, I thought I was a better leader because I look, when you're raising a child at home, you are 24/7, 365 doing all kinds of work that you don't even know that existed. So when you're at the workplace, you're even better equipped. And this really goes to women who have children in the corporate world. Many a times they're shunned upon is, oh, well, you've been away from the workforce for 3 years. Well, I don't know if you're going to fit in. Well, guess what? I think she will fit in better because she had this hands-on MBA. And this brings me to this Swedish ambassador to Bangladesh. He and I were very good friends. Same thing. He had 3 kids. And in Sweden, I don't know if you know this, that both parents get 20 months off when you have a child.
Oh,
And
wow.
and it's not that the mom will take 20 months and the father will say, oh, no, you know what, I won't take it. No, it's mandatory that at least one parent has to take at least 8 months. And the whole idea is that both will know what parenting is. And historically, it's been seen that when they go back to the workforce, they're actually better leaders. And this Swedish ambassador told me, Naveed, when I came back from these 2 years of being at home as a stay-at-home dad, I was uh, a diplomat at a whole different level. I was such a good diplomat. So I kind of digress. I talked a lot, but I think this is what it is. Even embracing this experience, you take your time off, you become something. There's a janitor who's cleaning the room. At the end of the day, you go and chit chat with him. Everything is a learning experience that eventually makes you better leader.
Yeah, your tolerance level also goes up.
Yes,
Once you are raising kids, you know your patience, your tolerance. And another thing I have seen that you become more empathetic.
absolutely.
You become so empathetic. I have an experience working in daycare while I was doing my PhD and staying from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. with kids. The level of tolerance I had to have. So that is unbelievable. So, and I think those are the skills that made me more patient and then understanding and empathetic as a leader, understanding that plight. My final
Absolutely.
question, yeah, my final question to you is: we hear the word success in so many angles, and the younger generation now measures success in so many different matrices. What is success to you? How would you, from your personal point of view, measure success?
As you just met randomly, it's really multidimensional. It's also very subjective. It's how you
Hmm.
look at it. Now, the question is, how do I look at it? So please do bear in mind, it's a very subjective response. Nobody
Right.
should say that's the standard.
Hmm.
And it's really has varied over time. When I was younger, it was recognition, it was position, it was even money. And now that I'm older, I would say those are manifestation. But it really boils down to the fact that uh, have I made a difference in somebody's life? I think that is the key to success. Have I made somebody happy? Did I make somebody move away from a very dire situation to seeing the light? That I think is success. So this itself also has different manifestations. Maybe somebody's suicidal, and I say, hey, you know what? It's not the end of the world. I mean, there's so much for you to look forward to. And there's, oh, you know what? You're right. I never knew that. Or somebody was depressed, came to my comedy show, and I've had this situation. Somebody said, I've had this loss in the family. I've been in mourning for the last 6 months, and this is the first time today in 6 months I actually laughed. Thank you so much. I feel better. So that's also success. And somebody who was on drugs moved away from drugs. Somehow, if I was able to do it, that's success. And of course, yes, if I say that, I got a Netflix special, that is also success. So
Right.
all these are successes. But at the end of the day, even that Netflix special, if somebody actually watches and smiles, oh, that was not only funny, that was enlightening. That's also success.
Naveed,
Thank
my
you.
final thing, because I love comedy. So can you give us just a little taste of your comedy? Whether it be a joke or a story. I need a laugh. So go ahead.
You need a laugh. Well,
So,
I think this is fairly a true story. And my kid, when the first one, I was 6 years old. She said, "Daddy, I want an iPhone." I said, "Why?" I said, "Well, my friend has an iPhone. I need an iPhone." Well, I said, "Well, your friend goes and jumps into the river. Will you jump into the river?" "No, Daddy, I'll just go and take his iPhone." Now that's funny, but that's also tells you how brutally honest and laterally kids think. And so that's a funny story, and that
mhm,
actually applies to leadership. And then because sometimes we shun at many times we say, "Oh, you're young, what do you know?" But then you'll realize that young people actually think laterally, and you say, "You know what? I never thought about that."
Mm.
mm.
That is funny, and sometimes those 6-year-olds can have better ideas than we do. That's the funny thing about that.
Many times. That's why they have the saying, "Kids say the darndest things,"
Yeah,
and that's why I always treat my kids as peers, never as children, and they love that. And in the process, I'm also being very selfish because sometimes they say things and you, "Hey man, that was a great idea," and I take that idea, use it to work at work, and they said, "Naveed, you're brilliant." I say, "Yeah, I know, but actually I got it from my kids."
I mean, we've really learned a lot from you, and we appreciate your time. My final question, because I think this is really the essence of great, whether it be comedy or a radio show or all of those forms of communication that are one to many, is this idea of preparation. Because I see so many people in our industry struggle to prepare. And when you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail, right? What are some of the key things that you do in preparation for anything you do, whether it be your TV show or any of your comedy shows?
Sure. One thing I try not to do is be too scripted because it shows if I'm too scripted,
Yeah.
people will know this guy, as we were talking about the audience, they want that personal attention. So if I'm on stage, if I'm scripted, the audience will know Naveed is not with me. Naveed is with his script. His mind is on a piece of paper. So one thing I never do is that I never be too scripted. And the other thing is I cannot be also because I've got a terrible memory. So if I try to remember things, it's going to just be bad. Now, what I do, of course, is that I have a mental preparation, but also plan B, plan C, plan D, because I don't know in comedy at least what they're going to be receptive to. So if I have things that, okay, today I'm going to talk politics and I go and find out they're all college kids, politics is now out of the window. So I better have something else to talk about. So I have my bag of tricks. Now, if you're doing a presentation, it's a little easier because now you know, okay, I'm going to give a technical presentation on wireless communication. So I know already the topics. So now you say, okay, fine, I got 10 minutes. So I better know what I'm going to talk in 10 minutes. If not line by line, at least I'm going to try and address these 4 points and maybe have those 4 points in a bullet or somewhere, but at least have my eyes on the audience. I can't be looking at my notes all the time. Okay. You just take a glimpse and then look. And third is you time it because if it's a 10-minute speech you got to do, make it a 7-minute speech. Because if you make it a 10-minute speech, that's going to spill over to 15 minutes. And then what's happened? You're running the light basically. You're taking over somebody's time or you're rushing through. Because remember, when you're actually giving that talk in front of people, there'll be an applause break. You're going to think, you're going to try and remember, you're going to answer a question. Those 10 minutes are going to spill over to 15 minutes. You'd better have tight 7 minutes for a 10-minute slot. Okay. And the third is that if you forget, you forget. Nobody knows what you were trying to remember, right? Don't apologize. But at the end of the day, keep it precise, keep it concise, be prepared, be on time, and deliver in a tight fashion. And however you hold their attention, that's the key.
Mhm. Yeah, all good things for leaders and public speakers to know, whether you're in comedy or any other area. Naveed, we can't thank you enough for your time. In our final moments, just tell us a little bit about where we can find your work, if there's any places where we can watch your shows, and what you have coming up in the future that we can look forward to paying attention to.
Sure. The one-stop shop is my website, naveedmahbub.com. Very simple, my name, naveedmahbub.com. So once you go there, now you can pick your choice. If you want to follow me on Instagram, click Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or LinkedIn, the whole nine yards, everything is there. And you can watch my clips, reels, videos over there. What are the big things happening? I'm looking to resume my late night show, but more on a podcast format because now since that's very popular, so do look out for that. I'm may have a special out, my Bangla special out, but will be online somewhere. An English special some point when I garner some traction because I'm in the West. I'm trying to build an audience. So pretty much that's it.
All those links down in those show notes. Naveed Mahbub, thank you so much for your time today. We learned so much from you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Ranuma.
Thank you, Navid bhai.